Fox 2 presents Hancock and Kelley.
Good Sunday morning and happy Mother's Day. Welcome to Hancock and Kelley on Fox 2, where we take on the top issues of the week. On the right, John Hancock.
Top of the morning.
On the left is Michael Kelley.
Happy Mother's Day, Mom.
And I'm Andy Banker. On the agenda, days from graduation, a University City high school senior is detained by ICE and now faces possible deportation. She talks with Fox 2 from her jail cell. With the shrinking St. Louis Police Department struggling to respond to calls, the Hill neighborhood of South St. Louis turns to drones to fight crime. What about privacy concerns? Mark McCluskey, a former U.S. Senate candidate, the Republican, famous for brandishing firearms at St. Louis protesters, along with his wife, makes a public appearance comparing data centers to Russian roulette. And in our quote of the week, the St. Louis region had been in a sports drought of sorts, but Illinois lawmakers honor a team that changed that with a run to the Final Four, ILL.
I.
There we go. Thank you, Michael. Also, the trial in Jefferson City aimed at overturning state control of the St. Louis Police Department and a big turnout for a St. Louis police hiring blitz leads to the question, why didn't they try that before? But we begin with a new plan from St. Louis Mayor Kara Spencer to spend the city's share of the legal settlement with Rams owner Stan Kroenke and the NFL over the Rams' return to Los Angeles. She wants to split up the $255 million instead of spending a lump sum on a single transformative project. Here's the breakdown. $110 million for revitalizing North St. Louis, with nearly $80 million of that going to long-term tornado recovery. $65 million would go to the city's water infrastructure, public infrastructure like streets and sidewalks, and also homeless initiatives. $55 million would go to downtown revitalization to be matched by the business community, and $25 million would be held in reserves.
What we're doing here is making a sizable investment in North St. Louis, both in the tornado zone and recognizing that we've got to make investments around in other parts of North St. Louis as well. And recognizing that the Rams dollars, while it is a large amount of money, is finite and can't possibly address all of the city's needs. It can't address the $700 million the water department needs. It can't address the decades of not having an adequate plan to invest in our streets and other infrastructure. It can't possibly revitalize entirely the downtown. This is not an amount of money that can do all of these things. And so instead what we're doing here is making sizable investments in some very key areas to make some catalytic investments, but recognizing that we cannot do everything with this. It's just not enough money.
It's coming up on 4.5 years since the settlement was reached, Michael. Is it time to spend the money, and is this the way to spend it, to divvy it up and throw it in all these different pots?
I don't know. We had so many conversations amongst the three of us here over the last several years about how this money was going to be used for a transformative project. Now we're kind of ad hoc doing essentially what is general revenue expenditures with this kind of money, so it's disappointing that that opportunity has been wasted. I don't know that $55 million in infrastructure is enough when you've got a water department that's falling apart. And, you know, hopefully the investment in downtown will help. I guess we should just be pleased that money's being invested and we're trying to accomplish something.
Should you put it all toward just one thing? Be it downtown or be it some project?
I'll tell you what I would do, Andy, if I were the mayor.
Are we going to get any bang for these bucks?
I would privatize the trash. I would privatize the water in the city. I would take that Rams settlement money and I would construct attractive, appealing residential communities in North St. Louis City. And I'd put a world-class charter school in the middle of it, and I'd put some health care facilities, grocery stores, and build out a multi-income level neighborhood. That's going to put feet on the ground downtown. That's going to have an impact on crime, a positive impact on crime. That's what I do.
John Hancock for mayor of St. Louis?
Great. At least we would be doing something rather than waiting 4.5 years and then kind of just throwing it in the air.
1947, Andy. It's the last time we elected a Republican mayor of St. Louis.
As Missouri Republicans push to eliminate the state income tax, state tax revenues are plunging. The legislature had to turn to money from a past budget surplus to cover the budget deficit for the upcoming fiscal year. Lawmakers just approved a $50.7 billion budget for that upcoming fiscal year, using $2.3 billion from the general revenue surplus to cover that deficit. Red flags are flying as the state revenue took a hit in April, down about $150 million. That's just for a month, about 11% off from April of last year. Is this any time to be eliminating the state income tax, John Hancock?
Well, the state income tax isn't going to take money, or it's going to be, that money will be replaced probably by sales tax. And this is a tough budget environment we're in. The economy's hurting right now. Prices are up. Everybody feels it. And I'm not surprised that the state needs to pinch its belt in a little bit. The last 2 or 3 years, our Republicans in Jefferson City have been spending crazy money. And now the piper's got to get paid.
Michael?
Yeah, and they want to make it up with an increase in sales tax on seniors who, by the way, mostly don't pay state income tax. This idea of getting rid of the state income tax is nothing but a raise of tax on everybody. Look, they've cut taxes, they've cut taxes, they've cut taxes in Jefferson City, yet they continue to spend like drunken sailors. I don't trust these people. I particularly don't trust them when they don't have a plan to replace the revenue. Look at what they're doing now.
Is a $150 million revenue drop for 1 month a red flag or just a
Oh, I think it's more than a red flag, and I think it's the start of what we're going to see as a result of this Trump incompetence in running our economy.
Well, President Trump's immigration crackdown hits University City High School. Days from graduation, a high school senior gets arrested and jailed for allegedly being in the United States illegally. Fox 2's Chad Mira reached 18-year-old Paula Rodriguez Boton through video visitation, where she's being held in St. Genevieve.
I don't want to be locked up here. I want to enjoy it with my friends, classmates, and I want to be with the teachers who have supported me during this time.
She told Fox 2 that she came to Missouri years ago from Mexico, about 4 years ago. ICE detained her April 28th at an immigration appointment at the ICE field office in downtown St. Louis. She's grateful for the support she's been getting from her school and her classmates. Michael, she doesn't know what's going to happen if she graduates or if she gets deported or what.
Yeah, this is the worst of the worst. That's what we're going to go do, right? It's story after story. It's not only happening in Minneapolis, it's happening here in St. Louis County, St. Louis City. They're bottom feeding. They were going to an immigration office to target this poor young high school student trying to get an education. It's deplorable and immoral what we're watching happen.
Even if it turns out she's here illegally, John, should she have to go?
I don't see what the purpose of it is. Going to high school, seems like an articulate young lady there, and I would ask, who's she living with here? Has she got relatives that are legally in this country? I don't know.
Well, she's not hiding, right? She went to the appointment.
Right.
She has some sort of immigration paperwork. A lot of that was not shared with us.
Well, and that's what we're seeing, Andy, is that they said they were going to be going after the drug dealers, the murderers, the criminals, and what they're doing is showing up at the people who are trying to cooperate and then busting them.
Yeah.
With St. Louis's shrinking police force failing to respond quickly, if at all, to more and more calls, one of St. Louis's top neighborhoods is taking action of its own. The famed Hill neighborhood is launching drone patrols.
We know that some of the crimes that we have, the pulling on the door handles and breaking windows, aren't as big of a deal as somebody getting injured or the police needing to go help somebody that needs it more. So this is a way that we thought we could use technology that's being used throughout the country to kind of support the police.
The Hill is known for its Italian heritage, great restaurants, and for being safe. Part of the impetus for this move was an alarming incident last fall when a man tried to lure a young girl toward his car. Police have yet to make an arrest. The drone program launches next week. It is funded through private donations. Michael, the Hill's Alderman Matt DeVote says this is an example of residents working with police. But shouldn't Hill residents and city residents everywhere be able to expect that when they call to report a problem, police are going to come like they do in surrounding cities and towns?
Well, they should expect that, and that's how it should operate, but unfortunately, that's not the way it has been operating. Now, I'm hopeful that we're moving in the right direction with our police department, but this isn't unheard of, what we're watching. This exists in St. Charles. We've seen other communities in the city of St. Louis put together their own protection services, and it's just a sad reality of where we're at related to crime in St. Louis City.
Should this be the new normal, and is that acceptable?
Yeah, it's acceptable. I mean, look, if the goal is to prevent crime, you got eyes in the sky up there flying around, that's going to have an effect in preventing crime, one would think.
What if you're going to the Hill for dinner? Are you going to be worried about? I don't
Well,
want
if you're
this
going for
drone
dinner, you're not
watching me.
doing anything wrong.
Andy, you're on television every day. What do you care? If somebody watches?
Most of this will be done at night, but the Hill's happening at night.
It is.
Ahead on Hancock and Kelley, that lack of policing in St. Louis takes center stage in a Jefferson City courtroom, and also at the St. Louis Police Academy, where for the first time the city fast tracks the process of becoming a police officer and gets a big response.
To hear more, listen to the podcast. Just search for Hancock and Kelley.
State control of the St. Louis Police Department is now in the hands of a judge in Jefferson City. 2 city residents who are part of the Arch City Defenders Group have sued the state to overturn state control that was signed into law by Republican Governor and St. Louis native Mike Kehoe last year.
We have a state legislation that says, we don't care what you want. We don't care what you deserve. In fact, we don't even care what the law has said.
A police board made up of city residents appointed by the governor now runs the St. Louis Police Department after years of the city failing to address its growing shortage of officers under local control. A sense of lawlessness has ensued with dangerous, reckless driving and unlicensed vehicles, car break-ins, car thefts, carjackings, and gunfire, a part of daily life for city residents and visitors. St. Louis Mayor Kara Spencer testified against state control, and she and the city have filed another lawsuit to overturn it. The judge will not rule on this Arch City Defenders case until at least next month, Michael. Should state control get a little more leeway than 1 year before a judge pulls the plug?
Well, I mean, the voters elected a governor who said this is what he was going to do, and the Missouri legislature went and passed it. It's law in the state of Missouri. You may not like it. I guess we can waste time, money, and resources trying to have lawsuits to overturn it. At the end of the day, what I'd like to see is cooperation to actually address the problem. We had enough of the 5 years of dysfunction of policing not having the support and citizens fighting over this stuff. I wish the governor would get involved and make this police board and police in the city work together, because we need to get safe.
We have a new mayor, but it seems like the bulk of city elected officials are actively campaigning or trying to defeat major increases in police funding. She's for some increase in police funding, but nothing drastic. But, it seems like voters, residents, the governor have said, no, we need something drastic.
We do. And let me tell you, the progressives that used to run this city, I'm talking about Tashara Jones and Kim Gardner and the Congresswoman, what's her name?
Cori Bush.
Yeah. These Arch City Defenders are birds of that same feather. These are progressive socialists, essentially. Part of the defund the police crowd. The defund the police crowd should not be prevailing in lawsuits trying to reduce the size of our police department here in St. Louis. We need the officers.
The past week brought a promising sign for hiring more police officers, one that never came under local control. A fast-track hiring blitz at the police academy drew more than 120 applicants on a single day.
It'll definitely help with our response time, being able to have officers on different things as far as details, and like I said, being able to respond to those calls. I know it's been a big complaint of the citizens of St. Louis, because we want to be there for you all. It's kind of hard to do when we're spread thin. So getting these people here and getting more officers on the street will definitely help with those things. So this is a very important event to have them here today.
The police department is about 270 officers short of full staffing, about a 25% vacancy rate, if not higher. It's falling behind every day. In 1 day, recruits were able to get through the process, an initial process that typically takes months. More than 100 made it through that first phase, including the initial physical testing. They're now ready for the next step, John. You throw 100 more police officers out on the street,
This is big news.
and you'd notice it.
Yes, this is big news. And, there's now a focus on enhancing the police department in the city of St. Louis. And I thank the governor for that. And this is a very positive sign.
100 more, imagine 200 more if there's another blitz.
There's still a lot of steps to go to these folks being actual
I
officers.
get that, but if you throw some numbers out,
Yeah.
people will notice it, and they'll start showing up when you call.
And regardless of where you're at in the funding argument that's taking place and who has control over it, we've all acknowledged on all sides that we need more officers. And so this is a huge step in the right direction. I hope we're able to keep those numbers sustained as we go forward.
Still to come on Hancock and Kelley, former Senate candidate Mark McCluskey returns, not waving a gun, but holding his hand like it's a gun, pointing it at his head, trying to make a point about data centers. And bitter opponents in the Illinois legislature can agree on one thing, honoring the Illini basketball team's run to the Final Four. Why stop there? A St. Charles City Council meeting draws a standing room only crowd as the council considers a ban on data centers. Among those testifying against it was former Republican U.S. Senate candidate Mark McCluskey. He cited warnings about big data and AI from Elon Musk.
My wife carries one of those little 5-shot Smith & Wesson Colt 38s, right? Imagine 20% chance of the elimination of human beings. And you empty that gun, you put one slug in, you spin the cylinder, and you put it to your head. That's what we're doing with data centers.
McCluskey is known for brandishing firearms along with his wife as demonstrators passed their St. Louis home nearly 6 years ago. How about his theatrics, Michael? And is there merit to his argument?
No. First of all, I thought his 15 minutes were up. Second of all, he's really obsessed with guns, isn't he? I mean, everything's a reference to gun with this guy. He's buying into concerns about AI that just aren't there. And the idea of what St. Charles is trying to do, I guess if they want to pass on the revenue, that's their business. And if you're taking advice from Mark McCluskey, then you got issues.
John?
Well, as a public service announcement, I would say it's probably not advisable to point a loaded weapon at your head. Start there. I actually, when I was in college, played the piano at a Kentucky Derby party at the McCluskey's house. That's a long time ago. I think he's wrong about data centers. Data centers are part of the economic future of this world, and we will err if we get on the wrong side and don't start adopting this. That's my opinion.
Does the past undercut his argument at all? I mean, you know, making the reference with a gun, putting it to his head, and you know the history of him and his wife brandishing weapons at protesters.
Well, when people show you who they are, believe them.
Does it hurt any attempt by him to
Well, I mean,
be
he's making a point. He's making a point. I disagree with the point he's making, but he's making a point.
Now to our quote of the week. The Illinois House and Senate took a break from debating legislation to approve a resolution, something they all agree on. The Illini men's basketball team deserves high praise for making it to the NCAA tournament Final Four last month. Our quote is from the resolution, which says the team, quote, exemplified a culture of accountability, preparation, and teamwork, earning the respect of opponents and admiration of fans across the nation.
We told our guys before we came that this doesn't happen unless you're successful, unless you find what winning looks like. And it's just an honor to be here. The state has been so supportive. The fans are terrific.
The coach and his players made the trip to the Capitol in Springfield for the honor this week. This was the Illini's best finish since playing for the national title in St. Louis in 2005. And John and Michael, shouldn't lawmakers take something from that quote? Accountability, working together.
I don't know. You know, I made it.
Their own resolution tells them is their blueprint for maybe how they ought to act.
I made it to the final two twice for Secretary of State. Nobody gave me a trophy. You know, there's places where this is a participation medal, right? They lost the last game that they played. So, I mean, fine for the politicians, but, you know.
Yeah, well, our beloved Mizzou Tigers have never been there.
That is
correct. Congratulations to Illinois, and I'm with you, Andy. I think both sides of that aisle over there, and for that matter, this entire country ought to read what they're saying about sports players, because it's not the way we act when it comes to addressing the real problems we have.
Final thoughts are next. First, time for a Sunday morning donut run. Drone Fox soars down Route 66 over the Donut Drive-In in South St. Louis. What's your donut, John?
Glazed.
Glazed. Michael?
Sprinkles.
I'll have a chocolate French, please. Final thoughts, Michael Kelley.
Yes, happy Mother's Day to Mom, my sisters, and all the women out there. Thank you for everything you do. You are the most important people on the planet. I just wish you ran it.
Well, let me wish my wife and my daughter, who are both fantastic mothers, a very happy Mother's Day. And I don't know if you marked the tape, Andy, but several weeks ago. They laughed. You laughed. You laughed. Many of you out there were laughing when I said this Cardinal team is going to be much better than everybody thinks.
I'm laughing
And
again.
everybody laughed. And I'm telling you, look at how they're playing the game. This is going to be a good team. I mean, they're not a great team. They're going to be a much better team than most people are expecting, and they're fun to watch, if nothing else.
Thank you, John. And to Michael's point, I think they already are running the planet.
Yeah, well, they should be.
Happy Mother's Day to all you moms, including mine and my children's mother, my wife. Remember, if it's Sunday in St. Louis, it's Hancock and Kelley on Fox 2. See you next week.